out your spirit, pour out your spirit.
Reviewing the outpouring for your refreshing and infilling.
Pour out your spirit, pour out your spirit, pour out your spirit on me.
Good day, and this is the Outpouring program, and my name is Rex Henry, and I'm sitting in for Minister Martha Berkeley. And this is the weekend just before the Father's Day weekend that's coming up, and we would very much just really happy to celebrate with you a Father's Day coming up in the next few days. So with me today is a guest that has been with us before, and he is Mr. Owen Alfred, and I like to call him the chaplain Owen Alfred, and he works with prison ministry. He's not yet ordained into the ministry yet, but we'll fix that soon. And he is currently engaged in working with men behind and in front of prison doors. One of our program that's coming up soon is for the Father's Day weekend program coming out of the bigger Mobilization Tobago program that has been going on, is this Father's Day Summit. This summit, we hope and look forward to having a time when we can sort of raise up fathers, if you will, and our theme for that is restoring the heritage of manhood. So we just came out of a massive mobilization for prayer across the island, and we're responding to the crime scenario. And right now we want to engage because Chaplain Owen, as we will call him, was part of that mobilization process and did in fact give some really wonderful contributions to what can be done, not just for Trinidad and Tobago, but for the region. And so we're gonna kind of build on that platform as we move into this men thing. But I've been talking a lot, so let me let him make his opening comments and introduce a little bit about what his thoughts are going to be today as we talk about this theme of restoring a heritage in manhood. Chaplain Owen.
Thank you, Pastor Henry, for the introduction. I just want to say to our audience today that if ever there is a time that the heritage of our manhood needs to be restored, it is now. Because men seem to be losing that identity of who they are, who they represent in the community, in the home, in their families. And that theme I think we've chosen for the Father's Day weekend is a very fitting one, because it speaks to the essence of why God created us and why we are the men in the home. And as such, when I even look back at our whole prayer mobilization drive over the weekend, and even listen to some of the issues that were vented by persons, I realized that key among this is that men need to be restored to the place of knowing who they are. For instance, the Bible tells us clearly that iron sharpens iron. And sometimes men don't realize that they can draw from each other when they are down. Mm-hmm. And also men don't realize that it is okay to confide in another man that, listen, I need help. Mm-hmm. And when we start building that community approach to men sharpening men and men helping men, it will help us. And so that's just one of the points I can think of touching on right now. There will be a number of other points, but really, iron sharpens iron. And it's a proverb that Solomon gave us, but the extent to which we really utilize that proverb is going to be key for us as men.
All right, so let's kind of look forward and project forward into the Men's Summit. So the Men's Summit is taking place in a high place. It's at the Education Center next to the Scarborough New Testament Church of God, in Upper Scarborough. That's next to Tambrin Square, and we have this facility that's program is going to be at 6:30 in the afternoon from Thursday to Saturday, and Saturday we're capping off with a panel discussion. What kind of topic you are hoping to bring out for this summit, you personally, because you're one of the facilitators, right? And how or what are the outcomes you're hoping to come out of that this event, bearing in mind that I was told from the weekend where we had the mobilization, the prayer, that even some of the police youth club people are hoping to show up. What do you hope would be their takeaway from this summit that's taking place in next week?
It's profound that you would ask me that, because one of the things that I really would like men to realize is that key role in the home is loving their wives, just as Christ loved the church. And I'll tell you why I'm using that analogy. Mm-hmm. Christ's love for the church was to the point where he gave his life for the church. And men have to understand that in the home, what they give is what they're going to receive. So I would like to see men come to the place where the love for their wives and for the family and for the homes and the community becomes a selfless love. A love where they realize when in other words, it is so popular in today's society where men think, okay, I run the home. Mm-hmm. But you know, humility brings exaltation. Mm-hmm. Because as we humble ourselves, we become exalted in the eyes of the persons to whom we humble, because they develop a level of respect. And when you want something, you give it. And therefore I'm saying to men, to us, start giving love, start giving humility, start restoring that love in the home, because I think that has faded away.
But just to kind of zero in, we're expecting facilitators from school, peer counselors. We're expecting community leaders, maybe pastors, maybe the guys who are in their men's department and that kind of thing. How does a peer counselor or a community leader translate what you're just saying in terms of how they mentor their young men and that kind of thing? In terms of because that's going to be one of the takeaways I conclude coming out of the event on the 13th and 14th and 15th. Yeah.
Well, for instance, when you are mentoring, you mentor by example. Okay. And that's why I use the term, give what you want to receive. So therefore, you want your wife to humble herself to you, you likewise. Let the spirit of humility, let the spirit that you are hoping to attract, let it pervade in your home. Love will attract love. Giving will attract giving. So my message really is emulate the things you want to receive. Model it.
Right.
In your life.
Right.
And
but could I ask you to deepen that? You work in prisons. You work with prisons, and not just in our demographic. You worked in prison ministry outside of Trinidad and Tobago as well. How do you have examples of how this principle has actually worked, let me say, in that environment where people have come from a background of violence?
Okay, I'm glad you refer to that. There's a trust in the UK called the Shannon Trust.
Okay.
And I had worked with that trust in starting a program called Tobago Mentoring.
Okay.
And the whole idea about Tobago Mentoring is whatever is the challenge a person or individual is experiencing that may have brought them to this particular place, you have a mentor assigned to that person that is walking with that person almost step by step. So for instance, I'll give you one classic example. Let us suppose lack of education was one of the things that would have led to a pathway of crime. And perhaps the person doesn't have basic numeracy and English skills. You would have an educator or a trainer who would work along with that individual from the basic of his skills. So you elevate the person's confidence. For instance, I'll give you a classic example. The young man who came on Saturday and testified as to how men of purpose would have transformed his life rather. We did basic etiquette skills and training with him. How do you dress when you're going to attend an interview? How do you behave when you're taking a lady out? That may seem very casual and very basic, but they say first impression counts. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, you walk into an interview room, every single step, before you even answer the question, the interviewer's eyes are on you.
Yes, there is.
And some people aren't aware of that. They just think, okay, they come to an interview and you answer a question in a certain manner. So I use that to say basically this. It's a mentorship program where you meet the person at the point of their need. Once you understand that, you work along that pathway.
All right, so
it's a personalized mentoring.
So the people who are coming out of the Men's Summit, is there any attempt by yourself to create maybe a basic manual for them to walk away with? Because we're looking at people trying to copy what has already been done, take some of the strengths, and then try to reproduce that throughout Tobago. Do you see yourself contributing a sort of manual or outline program that they can follow based on the experiences you've had so far?
Well, that is one of the things that both Pastor and myself have been in discussion with, which is documenting a lot more of the things that we do and how it's done, so that therefore, rather than we have to facilitate it all the time, we now have persons with the necessary material that they can facilitate likewise. So yes,
your hoping it's going to be ready for.
Well, that is the intention. That is the intention, and at least that is the assignment that's been given.
Okay, coming out of the event on last week, the mobilization Tobago, the 31st of May. What were some of the things that were said by some of the panelists, the other panelists that were there? I think the government was represented, the police department was represented, NGOs were represented. We also had some specialist groups, a youth club was represented and that kind of thing. Yeah, and from the richness of the contribution or the discussion that was going on, what are some of the takeaways that you have? For example, there are people who are saying that there is a need for another mobilization by August, sometime about mid-August. So what are the takeaways you got personally from the event that you saw?
Certainly, I realized that there is a need for community building again, and community activities again. For instance, you recall that I would have raised the point about trade schools.
Right.
That aspect of where people need basic skills, and it may sound trivial, but if I am empowered through skills, whether it's masonry, carpentry, whatever, and for whatever reason I am not employed here or I'm not employed there, I have a skill that I can now go and offer a service. I don't have to wait on the government to employ me.
A handout.
And if you, I don't know the community you came from, but for instance, I had lived opposite Bonacore Trade School,
Okay.
where they did both plumbing, masonry, and carpentry. And we had a pool of guys within the community when you needed to get things done that you could have called upon.
Right.
I would want to say that we are seeing the pool of skilled workmen in Tobago dwindling. You're now getting the Spanish doing works, the Guyanese, whatever. Nothing wrong with the foreigners doing work here. But the fact is, why the locals are dwindling where trade is concerned. So it means to me, and it speaks to the fact that there's no longer real emphasis at the government level on trade and skills empowerment. For example, Bonacore Trade School has been closed years now. The building is there. There used to be one in Mount Pleasant. It's been closed a while. And I'm sure if you go around the community, that is what you're experiencing. And yes, I know there's a move to where there was now education for all.
Right.
But moving towards education for all doesn't mean that you should remove skills for all. So perhaps it should be education and skills for all.
Okay. Well, let's. This is a Christian program where people talk about the move of the Holy Spirit mostly, and the idea of empowering people in terms of the Holy Spirit. Are you, when you look at this from a Christian and this spiritual standpoint, what model do you use from your Bible to guide the actions that you believe that your community need to take if it's going to restore the heritage of manhood?
Well, let us look at it. The Bible itself teaches us that a man ought not to eat if he doesn't provide for his household. And that in itself is at the heart of restoring the heritage of a man, where a man is taught that he is provider for his home. And a lot of our young men, I don't think, still have that as a drive. Years going by, you're growing up, you felt, okay, you know, as a man, I need to provide for my home. I don't think you hear those things anymore. And yes, the movement to women and independence is a very good movement. But very often, sometimes when you have one movement, you have the degradation of another. So I am saying that men need to get back to that place where they know that they are a provider, and there is nothing wrong with the wives supplementing and supporting them in the home. But she's not to be replaced and become the provider in the home. And we live in a society now where, you know, we're seeing men feeling comfortable to be supported. I don't think we should come to that place at all. You are losing your masculinity. You are losing your identity when it comes to that. Yes, you partner with each other. Yes, you support each other, but not be replaced and you lose your role entirely. No.
Okay. Do you believe that there's something spiritual that happens when men lose their position? In other words, does the next generation of men, why does the next generation of men need men to model manhood? Why can't why can't I learn how to be a man just by going to school and have an education and get a job and have some money in my pocket?
Well, the thing is, the best way for me to learn is by example. And if the men that go before you have lost that identity, then what identity is there for you to follow? What is the model? I mean, you can only identify with what you know, and I'm saying this generation has to restore the heritage of manhood. Because if we don't do it in our time, then certainly the generation to come won't even know the term manhood. They would speak about it in the historical context. No, and
but
yeah.
does society collapse upon itself if manhood is extracted from it? Does it matter if manhood is absent?
I throw it back to you. Don't you think society is collapsing right now? And what are some of the reasons? The fabric of our society.
But if the woman says because you're not fully supporting the women, that is why the society is collapsing, that women are not allowed to take over in every area of the society, because if they take over in every area of the society, all the problems will go away. That's what they used to tell us. That's what they promised us. They promised us if women take over everything, all the problems will go away.
I don't know if I would agree with the point of view of takeover. Was it? I think women had a right to require equality, because there was a time that there was certain jobs that women weren't getting.
Right.
That shouldn't be.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that once they are getting those jobs, then men no longer educating themselves and aspiring to fill those jobs. Because if you notice, even in the hospitals now, I think you're now having more female doctors than men. Nothing is wrong with having female doctors. Why can't you just have both genders aspiring to achieve and to do their best?
Well, maybe then we could ask a much more difficult question, which is, if women are in charge of everything, does that mean that all the problems were solved?
I don't think so.
You don't think the health system is better because most of our doctors are female and most of the nurses are female?
You see, I don't even want it to come down to just a gender issue. I want, because for instance, the issue could come now that you need to restore the heritage of womanhood. So in other words, you need to identify that there's certain things that are inherently men and certain things that are inherently women. And how best you coexist and work together to achieve a better family, achieve a better community, achieve a better nation.
Right.
It's not, and I don't even want it to seem, we're not in competition with each other.
So the reason I ask the question is because sometimes we're reaching out to men, but men may not think they are necessary. Because a man might think, if I just hand it over to the ladies, let's say he grew up in a house where, mommy was the one who was the provider, dad was gone. And let's suppose that he went to school, in the next 4 minutes. He was in school and all the teachers were female. And then he went to university and it was 80% female. And then he goes to work in the workplace and it was mostly female. And he's still seeing problems because the women he has seen in his life are not oppressed by men. The thing is, he may not think that he is necessary to rise and respond to responsibility. So if this summit is about challenging men to rise up to have responsibility, and they're seeing that our world is largely liberated of women, why is he necessary?
Because first and foremost, he's a human. And each human being, whether male or female, should aspire to be a responsible individual and a responsible person.
Right.
So if the cultural experience of your day is teaching you that you don't need to be responsible and you can shirk your responsibility, then it's a wrong lesson that is being conveyed.
Right. So you believe that part of the collapse of our society is that men have not been standing in the gap where they
They've
need to
shared their
stand.
responsibility, basically.
Yeah.
That's
So
the reality.
so you guys are gonna on the 13th, 14th, and 15th call men to stand up now and take and shoulder their responsibility.
But of course,
Yeah.
of course. I mean, for me, that is one of the critical problem that has to be resolved in our society, where men no longer realize their responsibility in the home and in the society and whatever. And that's why I cued in to the point of being provider in the home. It is important that children growing up understand that. So if I'm not the provider in the home, then I'm sending the wrong message to my offspring.
Okay. Well, you heard it first. Our chaplain is speaking to the issue. But as we close off, we just want to remind you that this week, if you're on the island of Tobago, if you're coming into the island of Tobago in this week, the 13th, 14th, and 15th, our chaplain here, Owen Alfred, is going to be one of the facilitators. And they're going to be providing a model for coming out of Men and Purpose. And this model is going to help groups, organizations, build capacity in mentoring men. Mm-hmm. They've been trying this model for a while, and I think, as he also mentioned, the Tobago program that he was involved in, that is bringing that to the nation. So we want you to join us. We're also looking forward to seeing you and partnering with you. So the Outpouring program is very appreciative of your support. We're recording at the studios of TIN, and we're down at Channel 5 in Tobago, in Signal Hill, and we appreciate your support and participation. And the guys here at TIN, Sean Devonish and Marsha Cooper, is very much looking forward to seeing you. Come in, talk to them, and let them know that you care about our own Christian programming. Bye-bye. See you next week.
Pour out your spirit. Pour out your spirit.
Be viewing the outpouring for your refreshing and infilling.
Pour out your spirit. Pour out your spirit. Pour